Hello, everybody. Today on the AIP podcast, we have Cloud Brigade. And Cloud Brigade is a strategic IT advisor and provider for small to large businesses, resulting in successful client partnerships, referrals, and rapid expansion. They specialize in developing creative ideas and the capacity to discover and solve complicated challenges that others cannot. My guest, Chris Miller, takes pleasure in being a technical co founder with the experience spanning across software and hardware, which has led to a slew of bizarre ideas in competitions and hackathons, like a automated beer factory and an animatronic ventriloquist dummy, and his team even winning the cardboard boat race. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show. Tell us your
Hi,
backstory. When did you launch the business, and tell us what Cloud Brigade does?
sure. We were founded in 2005. I did a stint in Silicon Valley in corporate IT as well as managing an internet services and hosting provider. And in 2005, started this consulting company centered around Linux and open source at the time. The cloud moniker had not quite come to pass at that point, and we'll be 17 years old this coming March. So, yeah, we've traditionally been involved in Linux and open source, and obviously pivoted into the cloud. We're an AWS APN partner, and we leaned into AI a few years back. At our core, we do um, technical solutions to business problems, and generally that involves some sort of software component. And we added AI to our repertoire because we felt, as a software development company, if we didn't embrace AI, we would be left behind with competition.
That's amazing. But before we get into the more serious questions, we have to talk about the Poopinator. And that was followed by What's in My Fridge. So tell us what inspired those ideas and why did you create them? Did you sell those ideas? Did you get out of it?
Sure. Early in our AI journey, we were working with computer vision, and we had a project that we were doing some R&D on. And I had gone out late one night in the dark to take my garbage cans out, and I ended up stepping in dog poop. And I didn't realize it right away. And when it occurred to me, I thought, I wonder if we can take the same computer vision technology that we're using on this project. Can we train it to identify a dog, but only when it's pooping? And that is where the Poopinator was born. And so, as I started talking to some colleagues about this, one of our kind of business associates got really animated and said, I need this. I am at war with my neighbor. His dog comes over and poops on my lawn all the time, and he doesn't think anything of it. So we staged this solution over at his house, and we designed it so that if a dog showed up on his lawn and was pooping, that we would send a message to an IoT device that was wired into his sprinkler system, so it would kick the sprinklers on his lawn and then shoo the dog away. And AWS caught wind of this, and they, much to my surprise, asked if they could hire a video production company to produce a professional video on this. And it was episode 2 of season 1 of a series called AWS Innovators. And so that was the idea, and it sort of inspired this get visibility through absurdity in a way. That if we came up with solutions to novel problems that had an underlying general purpose, like a business benefit, that might be part of our success. And we've just continued to build products on top of this line of thinking.
What's in my fridge? How did that story come about?
Yeah, so with What's in My Fridge was actually a collaborative opportunity. We were kicking around ideas to help AWS out with their AIML blog. And so initially I collaborated with a fellow named Konstantinos in Greece, and we were making a object detection model for a refrigerator. And so we had experience with the Deep Lens product from AWS, where we could do the computer vision at the edge. And he had some experience with the cloud-based recognition service. And so we put together a rudimentary end-to-end solution for opening the fridge, taking a snapshot, and seeing what might be inside of it. And so AWS approached us to do some extended video content on this. And of course, Konstantinos had just had a baby. And so I took the lead and I suggested, why don't we build this to the next level, like a practical use case for a refrigerator? And going back to our pre-COVID days, like everyone else, we were buying lots of the flavored soda water for the people in the office. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we had a beverage inventory system inside the fridge that would tell us what our inventory levels were for each flavor and then send out notifications to let us know when we were running low on a particular flavor? And so this set us forth on a pretty significant journey. We in order to generate the computer vision model, we needed lots and lots of pictures of cans of these beverages, and that's not so easy to do on image search. And so it wasn't practical for us to take a bunch of pictures and then manually label them because that was going to be expensive. So we actually came up with a method of synthetically generating images of beverage cans, and by playing some tricks with panoramic camera vision with a phone, we were able to create a label for a can that we could wrap around a 3D model of a can. And then we were able to position a camera and a light within a 3D space to synthetically generate these images and create that data set. And so the woman who founded the recognition service, her name's Anushri. I did an interview with her around how we use the recognition service to build a computer model using these synthetically generated images, and then tied that into a pipeline using the AWS Deep Lens we had already rigged up to take pictures from our fridge. So super cool project. We learned a lot. It built a lot of internal capability for us as a company to be able to build solutions around that. And we've begun courting customers to implement solutions based around this technology.
It sounds amazing. Thank you. Tell us more about your DeepRacer meetup group. Um, you won the AWS 2019 DeepRacer Summit. Tell us more about that whole journey.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we were looking to get into AI to amend our software development skills, and I went in search of knowledge as a CEO of our company and attended the AWS Summit in Santa Clara in 2019, and went to a variety of sessions on machine learning. But they weren't asking, the one question that was important to me is, how does all of this work? And at the end of the day, I got into a session on DeepRacer, which, for those who don't know, it's a 1/18th scale RC car where AWS replaced the radio controls with an Intel computer vision solution. And so in this workshop, we learned about reinforcement learning and about DeepRacer. And so I went about to coding up a model and training it in a virtual simulator. And my model was actually doing quite well. I do credit my previous life. I was a mechanic for a number of years. And so I think that helped me choose some of the winning settings in the model. And so they had a real racetrack out on the expo floor at the summit, and they gave us all thumb drives. And so we downloaded our models to USB sticks and we stood in line. And in the last hour of the day, much to my surprise, I ended up winning with the fastest time of the day. And I didn't really know about the DeepRacer competition or what they were doing at the summit. So I was surprised when immediately I had a camera and a microphone in my face. There was a sportscaster announcer who was interviewing me. About 45 minutes later, I was standing on a 3-tier podium with 2 other winners. So we got first place, and And all of us won trips to Las Vegas to reInvent in 2019, and that was the thing that just really kicked us into high gear with our machine learning journey. And since then, we've hired data science staff, and we have built out a strategy around executing not only computer vision solutions but other types of AI solutions as well.
Absolutely. We at SuperCharge Lab, we deal with artificial intelligence and machine learning as well. And the biggest thing when scoping out customer needs is that, data is always the, you know, uh, difficult part of things. You deal with disparate sources of data, disparate structures of data, from people with Google Sheets to actual sheets of paper from decades ago. And we found that it's been a really difficult journey to discover structure and activate data. Have you found a structured manner in which data can be managed easily for deep AI builds? What's that structure? What does that structure look like, and what does that process look like?
Sure, you touch on a key point that is an area of friction with AI projects. Is everybody has data, but it's difficult to get that data in a format that can be used to apply to business intelligence solutions or AI solutions. And so we got into the business intelligence scene a few years prior, and that's where we built up our skills in doing something called ETL, or export, transform, and load. And so this is the activity where you acquire data from these different data sources, whether that's traditional SQL databases or API endpoints for cloud apps that you use. And you aggregate all of this data into a data lake or a data warehouse where you can then act upon the data using BI tools such as Looker, Power BI, Tableau, those kinds of things, or using traditional AI tools to then build AI models around that data. And one of the struggles with this is that although the SaaS companies give you access to the underlying data, that data doesn't contain the logic of the application. So, in a way, you have to reverse engineer the data that you receive from all of these applications to imply some of the logic. And that's part of the ETL process, is kind of reverse engineering and implementing some sense of logic to the underlying data, and then putting it in a arrangement that's suitable for building machine learning models.
Great. What would you say to a person who's starting out taking statistics or math in school and saying, I want to be, a data scientist? How would you get this person started?
That is a very good question. I know one of our data scientists is a math nerd, and it shows. So certainly having those types of math skills and statistics, that is a benefit. I'm not sure it's for everyone, but there are many facets to machine learning. So the areas of machine learning where maybe that math is not necessarily important, I think more along the computer vision side of things. Um, but to your point, I think if someone is considering a career in artificial intelligence and machine learning, there are plenty of tools available to be able to experiment on the small scale to find, do you have the aptitude, and is this really interesting to you if you wanted to pursue it as a career?
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit deeper about data because it's such a big issue in AI and machine learning. Data frequently does not jive, right? So the data frequently conflicts, and that's always a pain, right? How do you deal with conflicting data when you build models for training?
So I guess I'd ask a clarifying question. Can you describe to me an example of a type of conflict that you're referring to?
Well, it really depends on where the customer comes from. But, what if there are disparate data sources and two different sources may have the same data, but and the same event that was fired, but different data that was collected and it somehow conflicts. What would you do in situations where you need to train your model and you can't tell exactly which is the single source of truth?
Sure, sure. Okay. So yeah, I think you're speaking more to the end-to-end process of building a model, and that starts with data exploration, right? First, you have to acquire the data, and you can use an ETL process to get that data and put it into a place where you can explore it, and then you work out those kinds of issues through that exploration, and you creating new features out of data. So you might have to pick a single source of truth. You determine one is a better source, a more accurate source than the other. You might have to aggregate multiple sources of data into a new column of data, a new feature that you need for your machine learning model. And then, of course, when you're building new models from scratch, typically, we're all still using Jupyter notebooks. So we're doing our data exploration, feature engineering. We're building preliminary models. We're looking at accuracy using things like scoring mechanisms and working out all of those details kind of in a playground before you're actually setting out to build something in production, like a machine learning algorithm that might be hosted in a cloud hosted machine learning endpoint container and so forth.
Well, thanks, Chris. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk a little bit about the corporate and the business perspective. Now, running a company or an organization is always challenging, from founder to founder. And the biggest asset that we all have are our people. But the same in that same vein, our weakest link in an organization can also be the people. So how do you align the people in a cloud brigade towards a singular vision?
Sure. So yeah, I think you're right. Our people are obviously our biggest assets, and I think our biggest weakness in companies is the processes, right? Because if you establish trusted and true processes, then your people are able to follow those. To your point about empowering our employees to help move the company forward, we've always been an open book company. That is, that we're transparent about our finances and where we're going strategically and tactically, and that comes from a place of you can't fix it if you don't know what's broken. And although many employees are happy to be followers, we want to inspire them to be leaders. And so by exposing them to these business level concepts that maybe aren't part of their normal day to day workflow, I feel that we're empowering them to help to push us forward as a team.
Sure. So let's shift our view to the future. What's next for Cloud Brigade? What's new? What's exciting? What's different? What's really, really interesting that you're working on?
Yeah, so the thing about AI at this point is, I didn't feel like we were super early. These tools have been around for a number of years, but they've just become practical to use, let's say, in the last 5 years. Part of that is because of the computing power and the resources in the cloud that are now making it practical to use artificial intelligence. So it's nice to be, riding a wave that has not yet crested. And so there seem to be lots of different opportunities, and certainly we're hunting for places where we can add value using the tools that we've developed internally. And we're also looking at productizing the work that we've done. So while we do build evergreen solutions for our clients, we're looking for common themes where a problem might apply to multiple companies, but we can develop that technology internally and productize it and then provide it to the masses at a much lower cost as opposed to a one-off implementation.
Great. So we're now winding down to the last part of our podcast. And before we wrap up this session, tell us how our listeners will be able to discover more about Cloud Brigade? Maybe share a website, an email, or contact information, or maybe even socials that we can learn more about you.
Sure. So the best source of information about our company is cloudbrigade.com. And on the resources tab on our website, we do a lot of content generation. So there are video webinars. Did a speaking engagement with AWS at reInvent, talking about an AI solution. We love to generate content around the stuff that we're doing in our lab and for our customers. There are also various YouTube videos available if you just search for Cloud Brigade in your favorite search engine. I'm sure we'll turn up on video as well.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on our first AIP podcast. We look forward to learning more about you in future podcast episodes. Thanks once again. And this is Anne from SuperCharge Lab, representing AIP podcast, signing off. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.